I have no idea what I'm doing. Should be the motto of this show. It's been a minute. It's been quite a few minutes, in fact, since I've done a sit rep. There's been a lot of stuff going on in my life, and so I haven't been able to do one. But I'm back. I'm back here doing one. I felt the need, the pressing need, and that was in the form of many people asking me, "Hey, yo, what's going on in the world right now? What's happening?" If you haven't been here before to the sit reps, this is where I kind of go through news stories and pieces of information that I come across and that people send to me that are of interest from those who are more preparedness minded. So those folk who like to look into the future a little bit and go, I want to prepare myself. I don't want to just get caught off guard. I don't want to get caught with my metaphorical pants down or my phorical pants down. Not meta at all. But yeah, so that's what we're doing here. We're having a look at it. And obviously, stuff going on right now in the world. It's a crazy place. It's a fun time to be alive, really. So let's pull that apart. There's some little stuff that I'm going to go through. It's not all going to be focused on Israel because no doubt, if you're anything like me, you're getting bombarded with information about Israel right now, and I'm not really add to that too much. I'm certainly not going to talk too much about what's happening on the ground. I do know what's going on the ground there. I've got contacts and things like that that are actually over there at the moment, so I kind of have to keep abreast of it. But if you're watching the news, and you're probably all over that side of it, it's more the implications of what's going to happen here from a geopolitical standpoint and how it affects us. There are many voices out there on the internet. A lot of them are pretty doom and gloom, and I don't want to add to the doom and gloom. I want to try and empower us to be better human beings, to try and be more prepared, to be more resilient human beings. And so that's what this is all about. We are also aiming to kind of look at this from a little bit more probably Aussie perspective as well, because a lot of the voices that are out there are North American, some English folk, which are great. I love the channels. I love all the channels. I'm not casting shade upon anyone, but for those of us who live down in the southern hemisphere, things can be a little bit different. Same, but different. Anyway, thank you for joining me. This is the sit rep for the 12th of October, 2023. And if I can remember how to do anything, obviously, like everything's different. It's new office, new house. It's new me. And I haven't done this in a while, so please forgive me if I am messing stuff up. So thanks for joining me on YouTube. Thanks for joining me on Instagrams. And also, thanks for listening to this if you are listening to the audio version after the fact. All right, let's jump into it first and foremost. Let's get this Israel thing out of the way. Obviously, there's a lot going on there. Israel itself appears to be gearing up towards sweeping into Gaza and doing a counteroffensive or occupation or whatever you want to call it into Gaza there. That could be anywhere from a couple of hours to days away. It's unsure. The numbers that I'm getting in at the moment, they've probably got around about 100,000 troops ready to roll. I think they're looking up over 250,000 is what they're trying to do this with. This is going to be a prolonged thing, by the way. What they're gearing up to do. Don't think this will be a flash sort of thing. This is house to house. This is like CQB, close quarter battle. This is urban warfare, and throw into the mix as well hostages. So this is going to be a very prolonged, painful time that we're heading into. So why I'm actually telling you that part of the on the ground information is the implication that if you think this is something that's going to just be gone next week, I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. This is my personal take on it. I'm not getting the vibe that this one's going away quickly. In fact, I think this could escalate quite a bit. Let's talk about some of the key players in the area, and then maybe some flow-on effects it's going to have to us. The big one I think here is, to me, Saudi Arabia. This is one of the main connections with the West in this area. This is also a big supplier of oil, fuel products, lubricants to the West. And the Middle East, the axis of the others or evil or the bad people or whatever you want to call it, the other side to us has been trying to really bring Saudi Arabia back into the fold. But thus far, it hasn't worked too much. I think China's done a pretty good job of greasing the wheels over there, as it were, and US has maybe done not such a good job recently of tying them in to our kind of way of thinking. But anyway, the point was very interesting timing when this war kicked off, when this attack happened, because one of the key things that was going on at the time was peace talks between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Iran definitely did not want that. They were very outspoken that they did not want that. And then, surprise, surprise, these peace talks have evaporated after this attack because Israel's like, fuck you, fuck everyone. We're coming out guns blazing. So that's tanked pretty much these peace talks now, and Saudi Arabia is apparently in talks. I'm reading some reports of Saudi Arabia being in pretty big talks with Iran, and they're strengthening the powers. They've been doing this for a while, and also a little bit of a no surprise here, who's been involved in that one? China. China's using them as a bit of a crowbar to, I think, pry their way in, and really they're trying to leverage them away from the West. So that's sort of geopolitical stuff that we're looking at. How does this actually pertain to us though on the ground, especially us as Aussies? I mean, Americans, this is going to affect you too. People from Europe, this is going to affect you if you're watching from there. First and foremost, we'll look at fuel price. I think fuel price is going to rise. We've seen some fluctuations, but it's been relatively high still in Australia, at least. It's creeping up, and $100 a barrel, I don't think is anything. I'm talking about US dollars here, by the way. That's going to be easy. I think 150, and it's not going to really shock me if it goes above that as well. Of course, this is just total pie in the sky theoretical, and I'm just looking at the big broad brushstrokes at the moment of this moving around. I'm going, yep, this is probably one of the big ripple effects that's going to come out of this, is increase in fuel price. There's a couple of things that make me say that, though. It's not just like, oh, yeah, I feel like it's going to happen. Yeah, I felt the wind, or like Saturn's aligned or something. So yeah, oil price is going to go up. No, this is actually due to a couple of things. Saudi Arabia being part of OPEC, I think, is like they're gearing to ramp up the price, not the oil production. They're going to decrease oil or cap oil production in order to increase price. One of the major ways that the US actually had to mitigate that was the strategic oil reserve. And you probably, if you've ever listened to me before, you would have heard me talk about this. The strategic oil reserve within the US is at not an all-time low, but I forget the number now. I was reading it earlier this morning. I think it might have been 25 years, but essentially it's at 17 days. They've got 17 days worth of fuel as a backup. If they're not getting anything in, 17 days. That number two, just take it with a grain of salt. You might hear that bandied around in other channels too. And I'm not trying to like freak out. We've only got 17 days worth of fuel left. There's a whole heap of mitigating circumstances to that, being that the US itself can actually ramp up fuel production. They can really lean heavily on other allies that produce oil to try and get more out of them. They can start to ration oil and things like that. But this is all pointing in one direction. All this that I see is pointing in one direction. That's high fuel prices, and that will creep down to us, the end user. So we will, I believe, see within the next anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 months, I think a pretty big jump at the fuel bowser at the price. So just be aware of that. And if you've got the means to maybe get an extra jerry or 2 or 3 worth of fuel, now might be a better time to do it. Especially if you can get it cheap, like places like Costco, if you've got access to that, or there's just you can always find a fuel station that does it a bit cheaper. Try and angle towards that and grab a bit cheap. At the worst case scenario, it'll probably stay the same. So then you got some fuel on hand. Not a bad thing. Just a few shout outs here. Alpha, Thanks for joining me on YouTube, Regan. Good to see you. It's great to be back, Cobber. Matthew Hayden, thanks for the message. Great to see you're back here. Grim Katsi, good to see you again. Take the ride. I haven't seen you in ages. What's going on? You actually sent me a message saying, hey, is everything all right? Everything's fine. My life has just been pretty busy. As an FYI for everyone, just wanting to take a little bit of a breather from like really staring at a lot of this stuff all the time. And I recommend that for anyone. Like, don't really, if you feel you're getting stressed out about this kind of stuff, about news and things like that, take a breather. All right, turn the TV off, or just watch some junk TV or something, or read a book, go out into the forest, sit by a stream, chill out for a bit, because things change. Yeah, life is constantly changing, but we don't actually need this kind of information to survive. That's the key point, though. To survive in this world, it's handy to have this information so we can get ahead of the curve. But it's not going to kill you a lot of the time if you do take a little bit of a breather from it. Anyway, thank you for saying that you're worried about me. Take the ride. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm really good. Thanks a lot. And that Institute says 17 days, exclamation mark. Yes, that's where the US is at the moment. Not sure where Australia is at, but fun fact, and I've said this one before, Australia does not hold its own fuel reserves. Our fuel reserves are in the US. So if push comes to shove, we're not getting them. US is higher up on the rung, way higher up. They're number 1 military in the world. Australia is number 16. So not that it come to that, but I'm just saying, they're much higher priority, I think, in their own eyes. What do I think about Web 3? Not much. Web 3, as in internet wise, like the alternative version. Not much at the moment, but I can do some more research on it. Yeah. I've got a partner, so that's happening. All right, back into the grim dark information of the near future. So Israel, one of the big ripple effects that's actually happening here that we're seeing play out in real time, and this is one of the concerns that I brought up in the past, is the US getting stretched out. I said that there was Ukraine, and we were focused on Ukraine for so long. And I said, hey, there's also North Korea, South Korea. There's also China, Taiwan. There's also what's happening in the Middle East. And I mentioned that many, many times because this whole Israel-Iran thing has been brewing for, a long, long time, but in its current form, probably 6 months. It's been on a very sharp incline. So obviously a lot more, a lot longer than that. But now we've seen the flashpoint. And this was what I was talking about in the past, is these flashpoints, because what's happened? Well, the US has just announced, yes, we've put a carrier group into the Mediterranean. We're sending another one, which isn't there to do the same thing. We're not reinforcing. We haven't sent 2. We just sent 1 there, and there's another one floating around in the Mediterranean. That was the words that they actually released on it. And I thought, man, their gaslighting knows no ends. Just say it. We want to support Israel, and we're sending 2 carrier groups. All right? Like, we're not idiots. We can see what you've done. You're doing that. But the point is here, the US is not infinitely resourced, because just last week, like I'm talking about 4 days before this entire thing kicked off, one of the top US generals came out and said, hey, yo, Pentagon, pump the brakes, yo, because we are hurting right now. We are running out of munitions. We are running out of resources ourselves. And if you keep sending this stuff and not replacing it, then we're going to be at a critical low point for our own military. So this warning came out 4 days before that. And so it's like, well, maybe they can continue supporting. Of course, like Biden government totally ignored that and just sent more money to Ukraine, and now has backed it up by sending more money over to Israel and actual military units over to Israel. So I totally would not be shocked if we see US troops on the ground in this one, because the main thing here is because there are citizens of the US that are caught up in this. So there is a precedent for them to do it. There is an actual need for them to go in. So yeah, that's how I see it. Is that the US is stretched thin already, and they're about to be stretched a lot thinner. All that needs to happen now, and we've got the warnings right now from North Korea as well. I don't think they'll do it personally, but it's within the realm of possibility that North Korea could do something against South Korea, which again, South Korea will ask for US help. In fact, US is obliged to go help them. That then is essentially 3 war fronts that they're involved in. That's not good. In fact, this smacks of, I don't like to make the direct comparison too much, but this really smacks of when I'm reading stuff about the collapse of the Roman Empire and how many different fronts they were getting involved in and how stretched their military actually became towards the end. That's what I think we're seeing. So US homogenous power within the world is definitely on the decline right now, and it's getting stretched out. That Institute says, how the hell would we even get our reserves anyway without fuel? Not that we can process it. Yeah, that's a really good point. Because as far as I know, those oil reserves are oil reserves, and we don't have the refinery capabilities anymore within Australia or New Zealand. Last I checked, there was one refinery that could refine oil in Australia that doesn't operate anywhere near capacity, and potentially couldn't if we had to ramp it up quickly. So, we're reliant on places like Singapore to do that, or, other countries really to do that, or the Middle East. Not a great way to be. Take the Ride says, we are on Web 2.0 now. Many social media sites are moving to a new internet called Web 3 based on blockchain. Yes. I'm very concerned about it. There's a lot to be concerned about. And I'm not going to jump too much into internet sort of stuff, but just the censorship stuff alone that's happening on the internet, which again was part of my thinking, I think, to why I haven't put too much out recently. Essentially, this is just painting a target on me, not even on my back. It's painting a target right on my face. And this is a major concern that we're moving in towards where we're heading right now. And I think there's a lot of scope for authoritarian type governance to come in. And I think what we're seeing right now play out in the world is actually pushing us into those sorts of hands. That they can utilize these sorts of issues, these sort of wars, these sort of, whatever's going on in the world right now, because we've seen protests already. We've seen division already within our societies. Within Australia, we have seen this. And I'm sure wherever you're watching this from, you're probably seeing it in your country as well, based on what's happening in Israel. This is the sort of thing where governments can step in and go, right, no, we have to actually enforce some more rules here. We have to control this sort of stuff. We've got people saying this. We can't have that. Even though, I feel I put out relatively neutral news. Obviously, I do slide my opinions in there every now and then. But I ask people to do their own research. I'm not telling you, listen to me. I am 100% right on everything that I say. Still, though, it's people like me who will get shut down and do get kind of shadow banned and such what. This is my concern. This is what we're heading into. Renee C says divide and conquer at play, and I agree. That's what we're seeing. Divide and conquer. We're seeing that mentality is so entrenched. One of the big concerns that I'm actually seeing is, for those who don't know, I used to be in the military, and I have fought in war before. One of the things that I look back on now and I find very interesting is the psychological justification of being willing to go in and kill someone. From my own perspective, I experienced it. I know what it's like. Okay, so I did it. What it relies on is a dehumanization of the other side. They're just this bad sort of thing. And it doesn't matter who I'm listening to right now about this current conflict that's going on, that's just burst out. Both sides are dehumanizing the other. And they're linking it from, I would argue, a justifiable point because both sides have done atrocities. That's my opinion, by the way, but I would say both sides have done bad things. So it's then easier for you to go, well, they're bad people, all of them. That sort of talk, that sort of rhetoric that comes out is what is required for the war mindset to allow war. And I think that's what we've actually been conditioned over, especially over these last couple of years, to sit in, is to be in this like, you are at this camp or this camp. You are here or you are there. I stand with, I am on this side of the, yes, no, this or that. And if you buy into that, then that becomes part of people's actual ego. And I'm talking ego as in the Freudian version of ego, like the construct of who you are as a human being. You take that on and you go, right, I stand with Ukraine and I'll put posters up and I'll put little things on my tag and I hashtag this or hashtag that or whatever it is that you're so passionate about. That becomes who you are. You take that on and you become part of that, or it becomes part of you, I should say. But in order to do that, you then have to have the other, because if that's part of you, then anything that is not part of you is something that is else. And when we have that else mindset, then we can justify doing really quite horrific things. As I said, this is just coming from my experience of this. Let me wrap it up or sum it up like this. You have to brainwash someone to go to war. War is not a logical thing to do. You have to brainwash someone in order to do it in this day and age, in the form that we have it. Obviously, if somebody is invading your home or something, it's pretty easy to do it then. But there still needs to be a form of brainwashing when we're sitting here in Australia and people are throwing out these talking points and saying, oh, we have to do this or blah blah blah. I'm like, you have to get up in the morning and take a dump and make yourself a coffee and go to work. All right, you're not over there doing this. You're not involved in it. So just pump the brakes a little and try and see what's actually happening here. See how the whole thing is playing out and how it's going to affect us all. This side, that side, left, right, doesn't, blue, yellow, whatever you are, you're going to get affected by it. Renee C says the sad thing about it is that most people that are part of this outrage culture will never have to experience the consequences of it. Exactly. In fact, most people who are driving this sort of stuff will never experience the consequences of it. If you actually look at it and you go, who benefits here? I can tell you, if you were paying attention to the stock market, as I was, there are a couple of companies that just went gangbusters in the past 3 days. And it wasn't Woolworths. I'll give you that hot tip. It wasn't organizations that are about peace. It was war manufacturing companies that went gangbusters over the last couple of days. And surprise, woke up this morning, gold and silver is on the rise. So that's something I want to touch on today as well. Gold and silver, like if you've been paying attention, they took a huge dive, which was a fantastic buying opportunity if you're so inclined. So you could have jumped in there and got some stuff cheap. I think a lot of people got a bit shaky when it started going down and was like, oh, how far can it go down? Apparently not too far, because it's on the way back up to where it was now. I don't know where it's going to go. Again, I don't have a crystal ball on any of this, but still cheaper than it was a month and a half ago. But I would assume with this kind of thing going on that we're going to see increase in gold and silver prices. Was hoping it was going to smash down some more. Yeah, we all were. I was hoping for some dirt cheap gold and silver, and didn't play it right. Didn't get in there at the right time. Cool. All right. What else we got going on in the world? This was a really interesting one that was sent to me by one of my main sources on the gram. There was, I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I didn't see this talked about a lot in the mainstream media. It was a little bit in there. When I actually looked for some other stories on it, it was out there, but it was mainly European news channels that had this. Um, there was a pipeline that goes from Finland to Estonia, and it had a dramatic drop in pressure, which means they couldn't pump it anymore. They're like, "Whoop, something's wrong here." Uh, and basically, Finland's come out and said, like, "This is someone sabotaged this. Can we get some help here?" So it appears as though there has been some sort of sabotage act on another pipeline in the Baltic Sea. NATO has come out and said that they're willing to investigate. I haven't seen any answers about that investigation as of yet. Speculation is rife at the moment, with a lot of fingers, unsurprisingly, being pointed at Russia. Certainly, do they have capability to do something like this? I believe they do. Do they have motive to do this? Yep. Probably do. Yep. And what does it actually lead to? Like, what do they get out of it long term? Well, I mean, if we've got gas, or we've got any resource, right? But we've got gas coming from Finland down to Estonia. Obviously, it can go from Estonia then into Ukraine. But I don't know that that's happening or not. This would make sense to me that Russia would attack something like this if that was happening. But again, who knows? Who knows? I've got no idea what's going on there. It's just another little interesting data point to me where I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, another attack on that. What's that going to do to the price of gas in Australia? Should be nothing. It won't be. It'll go up. It'll go up. Shelley208 says, just tuning in, where the hell have you been? Not in hell, that's for sure. Moving, doing work and stuff, doing family, taking a little break from staring at news stuff for a while to kind of refresh myself, get back into it. Been in the grind, really. Teaching a lot of courses and stuff like that, and just weighed down by it all. A lot of administration role now that I have to do. So admin is like my kryptonite. I'll do, a couple of hours of admin and I'm done. A couple of hours working out, a couple of hours out and digging holes or something, and I'm okay. But sit me in front of a computer for a couple of hours and I'm broken. Anyway, this is not about me. This is about stuff that's happening. What else have we got in here? This was an interesting little one, actually, that was sent to me by a friend this morning. Got a message from New South Wales government, the kind of the service side of things. So New South Wales, like roads and maritime and stuff like that. Yeah, what would the American version be? Where you get your license, whatever that's called. They send out messages every now and then. Well, they sent this one out, which I thought was pretty interesting. In case of emergency, pack a bag with your ID documents. Getting support during a crisis is much easier when you have all your identity information. Make sure you're always prepared. Put your key documents into a digital or physical grab bag so that you can find them quickly in a crisis. We can show you how, blah, blah, blah. And you can go to a link and check it out. I just want to say that this is a fantastic idea. It's a great idea, and you should do that. I just find it very odd that our government is telling us this information, and that it's coming from like a source that isn't necessarily about emergency services, because we have emergency services within New South Wales, within Australia, but this is not it. These guys don't really have that much to do with emergency services. They don't organize it. They don't look after it. They don't send people out. It's not their bag. So I'm wondering why all of a sudden more of a government sort of everyday running sort of thing is telling people, yo, have a grab bag. Does that strike anyone else as odd, or is that just me? I just thought that was like, okay, all right. That's really interesting. Take the Ride says, it sounds like your baby can talk as much as you can at times. Yeah. Screaming in the background there. Did you move out further where you can still have a garden? I didn't move out further really. Just built a place in town, but definitely can have gardens. And so got to do the landscaping first, but then gardens abound. I'm going to grow some amount of food where I am right now. Thanks for asking, though. Appreciate that. This is another interesting one that's happening in China at the moment. There are a lot of warning signs in China. I can't remember the last time I yacked on about China. Yak, by the way, is a euphemism for talk in Australia, or chat, or blah blah blah, not vomit as it is in the US. Anyway, I can't remember the last time I talked about China, but there are some worrying signs coming out of China. Obviously, it's been there for a long time. I've talked about their housing crisis, their construction crisis, what's going on there, their economy as a whole, and it all just appears to be one big balloon, smoke and mirrors. A lot of like, yes, this is no, this is not. You can't see what's going on here. We're great, we're great, we're great. But the signs that outside of that, outside of the actual numbers that the CCP is putting out, because they manufacture these numbers, outside of those numbers, you're seeing a lot of information that's pretty worrying about what's happening there. And here's one that I thought was very worrying indeed and interesting from Bloomberg. Again, this one was sent to me by my main source on Instagram. Since international borders reopened post-pandemic, advisors to the rich report a surge in demand for overseas backup options. Crackdowns on ideological out-of-favor industries, uncertainty over geopolitical tensions, and Xi Jinping's push for common prosperity, communism, have spooked the rich and even the middle class. In addition, the domestic economy looks increasingly dire. Exports are struggling, house prices are falling, and more than 1 in 5 young people are out of work. Many wealthy families feel it's essential to have money outside the country, whether to diversify assets or to pave the way for potential future immigration. It's happening. So again, this is a pretty big sign if you're looking at China. And I think you should be, have a bit of an eye on China if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, because I think as China goes, most of the rest of the world will go. And unfortunately, it's not looking great. In sum, for this whole thing, China economy is on the verge of some form of collapse. I'm not saying total financial economic collapse and disaster and zombie apocalypse or whatever, but they're going to go down, and it's going to affect a whole lot of people, 1.5 billion-ish people. That's going to then ripple out extremely fast into the world's economies, because we are all tied in. We're all way, way tied in. So as this starts to get shakier and shakier, so will we, and we'll watch it start to go down. But a sign, when you've got a population that is starting to look at other options, they're going, hey, I don't want to be here. I've got resources right now, and I don't know if I'm going to have these resources in the future. So I'm paving the way for me. That's a pretty good sign that, like, this is average people, like rich people and middle class people. So middle class people being kind of average people, I would say they're amongst the last people to sort of cotton onto this thing. Generally, your middle class is defined by being slow moving, by being very, in ways, conservative, I guess. If they're looking at options to get out, then this goose is cooked, well cooked. It just makes me think, like, what other information are they not telling us about China? Because we don't get very accurate stuff, and the stuff we don't get much. The stuff we do get isn't super accurate. So yeah. Take the Ride says, we had a EBS, emergency broadcast system, across the whole US last week. People are buying EMF meters and noticing the levels have increased. They think it's due to the 5G towers. It is. This is not a conspiracy, okay? If you understand how radio frequencies work, essentially you start down on one end with HF, big waves like this that are slow moving, that you can't pack with a lot of information, but you can send them a long way. They're like a whale. So slow moving, long distance sort of waves, and then we go up, and we've got your very high frequencies, your ultra high frequencies, and we're getting smaller and smaller, and you can send more information, but over shorter distances now. And then you start getting up, and it's like this, and then you got dual band or 2G, and then tri-band or 3G, and 4G, and then 5G, and then microwaves. That's why a lot of people freaked out by 5G, because we're starting to get up towards this, like, hey, this stuff cooks food. Anyway, the 5G stuff, obviously, it is emitting. We can transmit a whole lot of information. Like, I get 5G, right? I get it. I understand why people would want to take this on, because the ability to move information very quickly is pretty important nowadays. The issue is we can't move it very far, which means more antennas up. We're going to have to have heaps of antennas around. I'm sure, like, the crazy Illuminati bug-eating child, whatevering, people who are in charge are like, we should put a 5G tower in everyone's house. That would be perfect. That would be the win that we want. Instantaneous information everywhere all at once. Yeah, but the issue obviously is with, like, just from a actual mechanical standpoint, or from a physical standpoint, more towers equals more energy being put out, more EMF. So yes, more 5G equals more EMF. 100% correct. We can get more complicated from there, but I'm not going to, because I'm too dumb. I seen something where they have reintroduced the community kitchens again, like the Chinese R time, the Chinese Revolution time. If you ever get the chance to read some books or whatever about people's experiences within the Cultural Revolution in China, I recommend it, because I would say, is one of the biggest antidotes to communism that you could ever get. You read that, and you would probably be rightly terrified of communism, and rightly terrified of groupthink as well, which we're seeing a lot of nowadays. So just do your research. Do your research. Actually, someone said up here about research. Only conspiracy nuts do their own research. Boing! That's me, apparently. Yeah. Oh, this is an interesting one. I'll wrap up very quickly, but this is an interesting one. I did post this one on Instagram as they're interesting. First part. So I've talked about this a lot, that Germany, like, really pushed really hard and fast. They'll, like, get rid of coal, move to green technologies. No, get rid of the nuclear. Don't want the nuclear. And from my perspective, looking at how energy is generated and how human beings use it right now, I thought that is possibly a mistake. In fact, I didn't think it was possibly a mistake. I thought it was definitely a mistake. That I love renewable energy. I think the idea is great. It does not scale up to a society that uses electricity the way we do right now. It just doesn't. All right. If you can convince me of some way that it does, then please do. But I have not seen it in any of the technologies. I have solar. Okay. I utilize solar. I think it's great. But I'm one house. I'm not a fucking society. All right. I can generate enough energy to maybe keep some things running in here, but definitely not enough energy to keep all my whiz bang little doodads kicking at once. Technology is not there right now. And I mean, the technology is kind of here for me to do it personally, but my money's not there. So that's interesting that Germany's switching back, and they're going, actually, yeah, let's walk this back a little bit. Let's hit that hard limit that I like to call reality, as it smacks you in the face, which a lot of people want to deny nowadays. Essentially, this is what I teach courses about, right? It's all about survival. It's all about How do you survive in any given situation? How do we pay attention to the world around us? But really, it's about a human being's ability to take in information and adapt to that information, i.e., take in reality and go, okay, I have a version of reality, but it may differ from this. So I need to be ready to change my version of reality to what is going on. Like, oh, somebody's shooting a gun at me. No, 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 no. That doesn't happen here. That can't happen to me. That's me. That's a version of me enforcing my reality on the world. Instead of going like, shit, there's something bad there. I need to get out of here. It's this sort of stuff. No, we can all live in peace and harmony in a utopia, and our cars will just magically travel on unicorn farts, and we'll all love one another. Great picture. I love it. Not reality. Not going to happen. Never going to happen. Utopia. Not going to happen. We need struggle at the very least. Human beings require a struggle. And if we don't have one, we'll create one, which I think is most of the problem we've got going on in our society right now is these people do not have enough problems in their life. So they just make some up and then make it the most important thing and they fight that war. But, we can live in a world that we can just magically pull the energy from wind and solar and we'll all be cool. Mm-mm. We will not. Further to this, where is it? Switzerland plans to ban electric cars from the roads and order game consoles turned off during power shortages in a bid to reduce energy consumption. So key points from this from the Daily Mail. I'll get back to that previous story in a sec, but this one kind of adds on to it, where we're looking at, hang on, we can't generate enough electricity. So how do we actually ban people from using the electricity, which we've seen, already happening. We saw it in California in the last year, where they came out and within a week said, in 3 years' time, everyone will drive an electric vehicle. Then the next week they said, no one is allowed to charge up their electric vehicle because we're having shortages in power. Swiss have drawn up an emergency plan to deal with energy shortages this winter. In emergency situations, EVs will be banned for all but essential trips, and crisis restrictions could see all sports stadiums and leisure businesses closed. So already there's a priority here that they're looking at. They're going, these people can have, these people cannot have. This is where this goes. The idea of utopia, this is where it leads. It doesn't lead to a beautiful utopia. It leads to pain. It leads to shortages. It leads to not having enough supply issues. I just thought those two sort of dovetailed into each other quite well. Now, I'll jump back to this Germany one because the other part of this was Russian propaganda. All right. So this is on Instagram and it came from RT, Russian state-controlled media. And if you've ever listened to me before, I don't believe anything that RT says, but I also don't believe anything CNN says. So what I try and do is cast as wide a net as possible when I'm gathering information. My theory being that if I can get the extremities out there and the outliers, when these two people are clearly after something and clearly lying to me, then hopefully whatever we find roughly in the middle there will have roughly the shape of truth. That's my theory. So I've got stuff from Russia, I've got stuff from Israel, I've got stuff from Palestine, I've got stuff from Iran, I've got stuff from Azerbaijan, I've got stuff from Turkey, I've got stuff from Greece, I've got stuff from North Korea, I've got stuff from South Korea, I've got stuff from the US and Australia and New Zealand, blah, blah, blah. Left and right. I try and just cast an eye on everything that I can. The interesting part about this was I went to share this into my stories. Does not work. So I went, maybe there's a problem. I need to reset Instagram or something. So I scrolled up to the story above it, which was something else. And I said, share. And it goes, yep, you can put this in your stories. I was like, okay. And I went to the one below it and I said, can I share this one? It said, yes, you can put that one in your stories. So I went back to the RT one and went, can I share this? The button is there. You cannot press it. The button is not a button. It is now just a picture of that little aeroplane thing and you can't press it. So this, the reason I'm bringing this up is this coming back to sort of a brief conversation we're having just before we take the ride about where the internet is going and censorship and how we're getting a curtailing of information that we're going to get access to. Um, this, like, I find this so deeply disturbing, and I can't see why no one else does. When people champion this sort of stuff, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, they're like, we can't have that information going out because it's fake news." Like, it's all fucking fake news. Unless you're there looking at it, assume it's fake news. Assume there's some kernel of truth in there, but most of it is just fluff, or at least they're slanting it towards something and they're trying to get you to think something. If you're not assuming that, then you're part of the problem. I'm sorry, but you are. Yeah, and then when they go, "Oh, okay, well, we should censor people, we should do this sort of stuff." This never leads to a good place. Where this leads to is 1984. That's what we're heading to. So where you can, I want you to try and cast a wider net and look at more information. Be critical of all information that comes into you. Don't just take that thing and swallow it. Look at first. Go, do I want to swallow this? Is this going to taste good? What's it going to feel like when I swallow this? Anyway, that's my thought for the day. Thank you very much for joining me on this rather kind of truncated rant of mine today. Hopefully, I can get a bit smoother. Hopefully, I'll do more. Just trying to ease myself back in. I didn't really. I just jumped in the deep end. No, but thank you very much for joining me. As always, I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who comes on here, writes the comments, all the people who said, where have you been? I appreciate that too. I've been thinking about you. You know, wondering, where are you getting your information now? No, I'm sure you're getting information from other places. But yeah, I appreciate you. You're doing well. I think. Let's all stick together, keep trying, keep forging, ahead with these trying times. As I said, one of the reasons that I put this sort of stuff out is because I believe that we are going to go into times that are tougher than what we're living in right now. That is a pretty out there statement, I guess. That's a pretty generic statement. Doesn't really tell us exactly what, but I think things are going to get worse, and we want to prepare ourselves for that because things can get worse, but they don't necessarily need to get worse for us, or we can adapt with it as it's going, or we can collapse into it. We could all collapse into it. Things could turn to shit, and we could lose a lot of stuff. Because that's generally what happens when empires collapse. We lose the ability to do all sorts of things. Unless there's somebody who says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to hold on to this information. We're going to carry it through. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to hold on to this information. We're going to carry it through the darkness. We're going to hold that fire and make sure that we get through to the next day. That's what you're doing right now. And so I commend you for doing that. Thank you very much for your efforts out there. Until next time, feel free to hit a like button and a thumbs up or a heart or whatever it is on whatever platform that you're watching or listening this to, because I'm not like, oh, I want to be super popular. I want people to like me. What I want is exactly what I was talking about before. I want more people to get exposed to more information. And the only way we can try and push for more free speech is by kind of voting for it, I guess. And that's what essentially a thumbs up is. And that's what a little heart emoji is. Or it's the best form that we have really at the moment. So I'd appreciate if you could do that. Tell someone about this stuff. Get them involved. Don't just be the weird fringe conspiracy theorist friend anymore. Draw them in. Make them one of us. All right. Until next time, gang. Stay safe out there. And Semper Paratus.